So without further ado, Hiba, go on and take it away.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Thank you all for having me here. It's been lovely to hear the amazing talk earlier and to learn more about kind of how the problem of misinformation is like in every community, because obviously like we're dealing with it from a different perspective here. So really, really cool. Thank you all. And yeah, today I'm going to be talking to you about, I guess, a community that I'm kind of helping organize in South London, in an area called Brixton. But I thought before I do, I was just going to share a song with you called Electric Avenue, and it's about a street that's in Brixton. Actually, it's the first street that or the first market street that had streetlights. And someone wrote a song about it in 1983 after the street had kind of been smashed up as part of political uprising here, which kind of came about because of multitude of reasons I'm going to kind of talk you through. But I thought let's start it with like a nice little song to begin with. So I'm going to just share my screen and share the song with you, and then I'm going to go through my presentation for you all. So let me just do that first.
Now in the street there is violence, and then a lot of work to be done. No place to hang out or washing, and then I can't live all on the sun. Oh no, we're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue, and then we'll take it higher. Oh, we're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue, and then we'll take it higher. Working so hard like a soldier, can't afford a thing on TV. Deep in my heart I abhor ya, can't get food for the kid. Good God, we gonna rock down to Electric Avenue, and then we'll take it higher. Oh.
So I thought to share the song, not just because it's a brilliant song and I really love it, but also because I think it explains a bit about the politics of the area and a bit about the kind of like setting to why I guess our movement started and our organization started. Because like Brixton is kind of its history, its background is very much shaped by like inequality, and it's shaped by people who have more versus people who have less, and that's kind of been like a guiding thing for it throughout its history. But I'm just gonna start sharing my presentation to begin with, so you don't only see me, you also see some really cool historic images and other bits and pieces. Sorry, just let me do that. I'm not very great at Zoom still after a year of the pandemic. So this is Eddie Grant, whose song we just heard, and it came out in 1983, and the Brixton uprisings were in 1981. But just to bring it back a bit further back, this is where Brixton is. We're a little area in South London, basically. And Brixton's kind of been around since Roman times, really. It's been kind of an area where lots of people have lived, lots of different communities have kind of called it their home. But it became prominent in the late 1800s as like London was becoming richer and richer by, I guess, colonizing the world really and bringing lots of other people's wealth into the city. Brixton kind of became this, I guess, like middle class hub where lots of people built really nice big homes. And in the if we fast forward to the like 1920s and 30s, it became an area that was very cultural, lots of different theaters and music and food venues. But as we kind of moved into the Second World War, the area was really heavily bombed, and it became like just a bit run down, and money wasn't really coming into it. It became like a bit marginalized because a lot of the wealth in the city started being concentrated on the north of the river, which you can see here. So these areas became richer and richer, while these areas became very much like, I guess, marginalized, and not a lot of money was put into rebuilding them in the same way, which meant that like there was like an inequality coming into like the second half of the century. And also around the same time, at the end of the war, the UK was kind of at the end of its age of empire, I guess, in a way, and it was heavily bombed, like I said, throughout the war. So it kind of asked a lot of people from the Commonwealth, which is what it's called, I guess, its empire, to come and help rebuild, rebuild Britain, basically, in this post-war wreckage. So these are people that have kind of been grown up to told that like they're part of a motherland, you know, like the UK is a land of opportunity, a land of, you know, gold paved streets. And then they came and they were put into Brixton, which was like an absolute shithole at the time, to be honest. It was completely bombed wreckage. It wasn't a very safe place to live. So, you know, like this generation, a lot of them came from the Caribbean. So they came with these like huge boats. That one of them was called the Windrush. So they've become known as like the Windrush Generation. And clearly, like when they came to London and then they were put in like Brixton, it became quite clear that like this motherland that they'd been told about their whole lives, and the motherland that had kind of like quelled their, I guess, independence, actually wasn't a good mother to them all, didn't see them equally. So like lots of people, when they came to London, were met by signs that said no dogs, no blacks, no Irish. They weren't, you know, they couldn't go and like have food outside of the house. They couldn't rent homes. So they had to create homes for themselves. And that's what Brixton essentially became. It became the capital, I guess, of Black Britain, of immigrant Britain, of working class Britain. Lots of different communities kind of made their home there. We also have a market that's about 150 years old. So that market became like a really important hub for people to get their food that they, you know, want to eat and that they're familiar with, and, you know, and be served, more importantly, like in shops where they were respected and kind of valued as human beings. So this kind of inequality, you know, it kind of became even worse, I guess, by Brixton being a more prominently Black and migrant and working class area. So it became even, I guess, like less of an important area to invest in. So that kind of bred a lot of, I guess, I wouldn't say bitterness, but it's like a feeling of hurt, like a feeling of being an outsider, a feeling of being not important, which then translated to a big like political movement that kind of came to have its home in Brixton as well. So, you know, the area became kind of a squatter's haven. So squatters are people who kind of take over homes when they weren't really being in use. And a lot of these homes were actually in Brixton because a lot of the middle class areas, I mean, middle class people that used to live in Brixton kind of left it when, you know, it kind of shifted in character. So a lot of homes were just kind of left in disarray, and, you know, slum landlords kind of renting them out really cheap, but like in a state of absolute, you know, disrepair. So these squatters would kind of take over, you know, remodel the homes, make them safe for everyone, and also kind of create community for people who wouldn't be able to buy homes or rent even because of their background. So, you know, it became a hub for like Black radicalism. It became a hub for leftist, I guess, organizing. It became a hub for gay rights organizing. So the group that you're seeing down here, they're called the Brixton Fairies. They used to do some really cool art, and they had a good community group that just did some really interesting and fun, I guess, mutual aid for the area. And I guess like Brixton's kind of known for what they call riots, but what people here call an uprising in 1981, because I think like things escalated so much and people could see other areas kind of flourishing, becoming richer, people having more opportunities that people were very much denied here. So in 1981, also, sorry, I should not neglect to say that like racism is like a huge part in why the uprisings happened. So the Black community like faced a lot of racism here, and the police in particular were horribly brutal to everyone here. So in 1981, police were kind of, I think like the story goes is that they were on the lookout for someone. They entered into a home and then they shot a woman, just like shot her for existing, a Black woman, an elderly Black woman. And that kind of sparked the uprisings that took place that year, 1981. So people kind of took to the streets, protested. There was a lot of I guess, anger, which kind of translated to violence. So like things were set on fire. A lot of the shops that were like racist to black people ended up being, you know, destroyed because people were angry. It's like, well, why are you here if you're gonna discriminate against people? Why are you here if you're profiting off of us, but you see us as lesser human beings? So like the area was left in a pretty bad disrepair. And you know, there was no resolution to the violence that had taken place. A lot of people were brutalized. A lot of people ended up in prison because of the uprisings, and the area kind of became even more broken down. But like, I think that the spirit of it was that like, you can't step on us, which is a really good thing. And it shows that the community stands up for itself when it needs to. So I'll just fast forward a bit to nowadays. This is kind of what Brixton looks like to me, someone who lives here full time. It's a really like bright mixed residential area. We have a really lovely like outdoor market where still all of these communities that have lived here for like 50 so years have representation in terms of the food that's being sold and the garments that are being sold in the shops. We also have an area that's like being a bit more gentrified with more like restaurants and these types of things. And restaurants that I should say a lot of people who have lived here for a long time don't really visit because they're really unaffordable. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But like what's important to say is that like Brixton's kind of managed to keep its roots in these migrant and like working class like people. And you know, the culture that's been built by these outsiders is still here, like reggae like and hip hop and all of these like subcultures that kind of grown out of these areas. You know, like the sounds and the smells and the foods, they're all still here. And what's also important to note is that like the area, because like it was a bit deprioritized, it kind of kept this, I guess, like village-like look. So as you can see in the images, there aren't really high-rise buildings here that you'd see other places like in a capital. It's kind of like low-rise housing, quite nice open spaces, a lot of green space here still. So in a way, we've kind of been privileged by not having a huge influx of capital come in, because like it's meant that like the area is kind of very well preserved, very pretty that way. But like I said, the area is becoming more and more gentrified. So like since I guess the early 2000s, some money have started coming in, and that's partially because other parts of London have become so expensive that people just had to move out. So they started venturing into, I guess, areas that were seen as less desirable south of the river, so areas like Brixton, which meant that like it had some obviously good effects, because it meant that like more money could come into the area, which led to better services. But it also meant that the people who've been living here for a long time, the kind of outsiders that I was telling you about, they've started being pushed out at a heavy rate. So like the homes that they've owned for ages were sold, and then other people kind of moved in, and then they had to leave London because London's quite expensive. And also this gentrification has meant like a change in the, I guess, in the character of the area. So it's becoming more and more like a hub for partying and I guess like food outlets, etc. And there's less like focus on the market and the residential areas, which are like really important to migrant people's identities, because that's where we go to get food and like feel like we're at home. And instead, like all of the money is being put into making it like a nice party hub for people who have money to party a lot. So like it's a bit of a struggle and the gentrification is really like heavily felt. So like when you go to these kinds of places that I've kind of put on the image here, it's a heavily kind of white presence, whereas when you go to the market and it's like daytime, you see more of the Brixton of the past, like people of all sorts of creeds and backgrounds kind of coming together in a really cultural hotspot, I guess. Whereas yeah, these areas are like, these spaces I guess are more like middle class and white, because that's the kind of people that they're trying to, I guess, bring into the area. And like on top of like, because of this happening, like since 2010 or so, there's been a heavy push against gentrification. So lots of different groups sprung up. One is based, for example, called Sleepless in Brixton. So it's people who live really close to these hubs who can't sleep because this, like the sounds from the clubs, etc., are so loud that like completely takes it out of them. And another thing, another movement that sprung up is called Reclaim Brixton. So it's like people who've lived here for a really long time who are a bit scared about the rate of gentrification and their communities being pushed out and their children not being able to stay in the area. So they've kind of pushed, I guess, they're kind of building a political community to kind of push against that. And just to like, I guess, contextualize it a little bit more even, like an average house price in London is now currently £500,000, which is 800 million yen or 708,000 US dollars. And just to rent is like £1,150 or 178,000 yen or $1,628. And that's just for one bedroom. So it's really like becoming super unaffordable to live in London in general, and in Brixton in particular, because of this whole up and coming status that it has. So yeah, like, you know, some people who are like more for gentrification would say that like, oh, average wages are going up in London, so it's normal for these prices to go up. It's normal for an area to see the shift it has. But actually, like, there's been like a huge wage stagnation in general across like more, I guess, working class professions, which has meant that like, while middle class people can kind of get more promotions, I guess, and get better wages, that hasn't translated into the same opportunities for people who are like more working class. So it means that like London's just becoming impossible to live in for certain types of people. And these are the people that have called Brixton their home for like the last 100 years or so. So there's a lot of like, I guess, inter-community tension and like people kind of distrusting each other in a way, like, you know, some people called yuppies, some people are called, you know, more like older locals and so on. So like for a while, I think like the tensions were kind of turned against each other rather than the politics, which really kind of shapes who gets to stay and who gets to leave. But I'll just kind of
Hiba, you have about 3 more minutes.
Oh, sorry. Oh God. So yeah, just to kind of contextualize where we are now, we are now in an area where like I said, like there's a huge inequality. And last year, someone called Taylor McWilliams like bought like our market, and he decided that like, because he is a very fancy American man, he was gonna kind of shape the area into his identity. So he kind of decided to kick out a really important shop here called Save Nour Cash and Carry, which a lot of people buy their supplies from. And that kind of became a new spark, I guess, for political movement in Brixton. So like me and a bunch of other people who have lived here for like various amounts of times decided to come together and kind of push back against this eviction of the shop and against, you know, one person getting to decide what our area looks like just because they have more money than everyone else. So we formed a group called Save Nour. We started making videos and basically going out to talk to the community about what's happening. And we took to social media and we started kind of making, you know, messaging about the pandemic, about what kind of area we're living in. Made like lots of fun stunts online because we were under heavy lockdown. So for example, Taylor McWilliams, he's also a DJ, and we found that out through our research. So he had like an online concert, for example. So we decided to crash that and like do a protest in the thing. So this is kind of what we looked like when we did it. And that like action became actually quite viral because we used Twitter to kind of talk about it and talk about what was happening. And from that, like we got a lot of media spotlight on us because there wasn't a lot of activism happening. There wasn't a lot of things happening in general because of the lockdown. So we started getting like support from different people who've grown up here, who've now, you know, gone on to become like quite big household names, people in the music industry who weren't happy with this person kind of using music to, I guess, like clean up the politics that they're kind of enacting on the area. And basically we built a movement that made sure that this shop could stay and make sure they weren't evicted from their like I guess like from their slot, which is so important to so many people. But then we found out that this person was also going to build a huge tower that was kind of like an office tower. Like I said, like we don't really have that kind of thing in Brixton. As you can see, like it's a bit of an eyesore, like it stands out in the area. It's also going to be like one of many we suspect. So we started a campaign called Fight the Tower, and that's kind of been ongoing since. So we've had one major win, and we've kind of brought the community together to kind of fight against this next one. Our local elected leaders weren't very much about that because they kind of tend to do whatever developers tell them to do. But we've really kind of, because we've been so vocal, because we've been using social media, because we've been using our voices, we've kind of stalled this development for like almost a year and a half now. And we've made it so like politically dangerous for them to deal with it that now Sadiq Khan, who is the London mayor, decided to put a stop to it, or like to halt it for a while and to do public consultation, which means that we're going to now have a space to kind of tell our side of the story and say why we oppose the town being developed in a way that we can't stay, which is really good because we haven't really had a chance to do that before. And also, like we had a huge fundraiser for a while, which kind of collected a good pot of money so we can keep organizing in a sustainable way. And some of it will go to art. So we now have like an art fund where we're funding local artists to talk about what's happening in the area through music, through murals, through all sorts of things. And we're going to continue fighting. I guess we're going to continue putting up a front and to kind of talk about gentrification in a way where we're not attacking our neighbors, because we know our neighbors were probably brought here for the same reason that we are, but attacking kind of the politics that kind of makes some areas, I guess, like more or less desirable based on the people who live in it. And we're saying that like there needs to be equality and people need to be accounted for when doing these decisions. So yeah, sorry for running a bit over time, but that's kind of our movement in a nutshell. Thank you for having me today. And yeah, I'd love to answer any questions anyone has.
All right, thank you so much. What a fantastic talk and a bit of activism and activism you guys are doing. I don't think it was mentioned in the talk, but whatever happened to the storefront that it was the impetus to your action this time?
Yeah, we ended up saving it actually. Like it was really good because like, you know, it became from like our local issue, it became like an international issue. Like we were on the, you know, we were talking on like all sorts of newspapers. We ended up on the New York Times. Like the guy was like under so much pressure that he was just like, you guys get to stay. I'm reducing your rent. I will do whatever you want, which was exactly what we needed. Like we need him to have a conversation with these tenants. Like they're not just people he can kick out. And also I think something I didn't mention is that like that shop isn't like failing or anything. Like they weren't being moved out because they're a bad shop. Like it's literally one of the most successful businesses in the area. Like it has 10,000 people coming to it every week. It's like that important. And he decided to target it first, which we think is like a political move. Like it's a signal for, I guess, like you guys are not wanted here. So get out, you ugly, whatever, like migrants, poor people. And I'm gonna put in the people I want to see here, which are like rich people. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic. That's good news. Well, we'll take some questions from the chat or on the Facebook. So if or while we're waiting for any kind of questions to come in, anybody right now want to ask something, have conversations?
Yeah, that was so amazing. That was such a good talk. I'm from just west of London, but I haven't like been to Brixton enough. So it was really amazing to hear about the history and about the work that you're doing. Like, I guess if I had a question, it would be like, if you wanna, what advice would you give to people who want to get more involved in activism? And what kind of first steps would you suggest taking?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first step is just to like, find what topic do you have time and like the energy to be passionate about. Because I think like there are a lot of injustices in the world. I think people, when they try and get into these spaces, they have a mistake. Like they do the mistake of kind of burning out really quickly because they go, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And it's like sometimes it's good to remember that there's like a whole movement out there. Not like you as a single individual don't have to do everything on your own. It's good to kind of focus your time and energy into one thing, and then maybe you can flow to the next. Like I'm kind of like, my background is in climate work really, but I started doing this kind of stuff because I was stuck at home during the pandemic and I was really worried about what was happening in my neighborhood. So rather than looking, like upward, I guess, like an international sphere and what's happening in climate, I started thinking more about my neighborhood and like what was happening to my neighbors, what was happening to the people that I could see like literally being evicted out of their homes because they could no longer afford to live here. So that's like, I decided like, oh, me as a person, I have the time to do both. But I think like, you just have to be realistic about what you can do and also like apply your skills. So like just think, what are you good at? So like my skill is that I really like talking to people and I can talk everyone's head off. So like I like being out in the streets and like telling stories. But some of our other members, for example, they're very shy. They don't like doing that. So where they were good is that they were like good at making videos and like making art and talking to journalists, because that's 101 rather than talking to, a whole community. And like, I think everyone that does anything can potentially be in an activist movement, but like not everyone needs to do everything. Like you can just do the thing you're really good at, and that's valuable and that's needed, because these spaces, usually you don't have money, but what you have is your time and your skill. So that's the thing you can invest in.
Was it easy to get a group of people together to get started?
Yeah, like, I mean, we kind of, like, some of us kind of knew each other because we were neighbors, and some of us knew each other from like political organizing in the past. So like a lot of us, for example, are members of the local Hiba Party, which is a leftist organization. So like we kind of got together from there, and then like it escalated, and all of a sudden people who'd never done organizing before were like, I want to join and I want to help out. I'm a musician. I think that him using music to like whitewash his name isn't okay, and I'm gonna talk to musicians and tell them to boycott him. So it was kind of how it started. And then yeah, we had like kids joining us versus really like elderly who don't know how to use Zoom, but who are really enthusiastic about like calling each other. So it was, yeah, it became a really interesting mix of stuff and people and skills.
That's really cool. Thank you so much.
I was so moved that you built up the community that helps each other to do one part and one part, different parts. So it's really similar for me in this case, like not like Kansai for me is really hard stuff. But Raymond and Katie is helping me, and also Hiba, and will join that. And that's the reason why we can do this. So like listening to your story, it's really different from not like Kansai, but I was looking like the situation of mine. It's the same as community building. Yeah, so like people cannot do anything just alone. So that's what I thought. So it was really, really great story that you shared. Thank you very much. Just I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you for creating this beautiful community.
Thank you very much for coming.
Oh yeah, we got it's what I guess suppose one of the advantages of going all online, that we can find people from all over the world now, not
Yeah.
just through Japan, to join us this. So gives us an idea sometime in the future too, if we are able to do in-person meetings in the future. Yeah, we're still stuck a little bit on the stagnation part here, on like what's happening in UK and the US right now. There's one more question or point we can take. Doesn't look like there's anybody else in the participant chat right now, or on the Facebook. Will, did you have a question you wanted to try to bring up? Oh, you're muted right now.
Okay. So what is your immediate goal like in the short term? Like obviously you have long-term goals to kind of to fix the situation, but what are your immediate short-term goals? Like are you focused on just trying to recruit more people? Are you trying to increase awareness? Like how do you balance those long-term and short-term goals?
Yeah. So I think like we're kind of like a big group, and like I said, like lots of different people are doing different things. So like it's not so much recruitment, it's just kind of outreach. So for example, we do a stall every Saturday morning where we go and we just like stand in the same place and we talk to people as they're passing by the market to kind of tell them about things that are happening and like tell them about how ways they can kind of get involved or like make their voice heard. Because as soon as you tell people about these kinds of developments and things, they get really upset and they say like, why is this happening? And it's something that our local government's been very good at not talking about, which is like their plans for the area and their plans to kind of shift its demographic. So I think like it's just kind of raising that awareness and also showing that like we have wins on our side, like we managed to, stop eviction in a time where like literally usually when these kind of things happen, people just kind of tend to move on because they have no means of fighting. And also like managing to stop a development of that kind is just like unheard of really, because like we have no money, we have no power really. And this guy is kind of like sat in the lap of our politicians and really good friends with them. And he has all the money and all the PR, and we still managed to make it so untenable for them. So I think like when we say like there are ways of winning, it's just like you have to reconceptualize what winning means. It becomes a really good thing and people become like motivated to join and motivated to get involved. So I think that's what I really want to build on. Like when I say it's not hopeless, like you just have to reshape it. Like every day we stop this development, they're losing money, which I'm really happy about. So maybe next time they're not just going to push stuff through, they're going to talk to people and they're going to find out what they want. And then they develop something that people actually want and can afford.
Fantastic. Okay, well, that's the 10 minutes of Q&A on this. So I'd like to bring the talk to a close. And thank you very much, Hiba, calling in from UK, talking about a very inspirational story to all of us. And we have hope for much success in the future of the
Yeah.
organization. Oh, just where's the best place to find your group? I should have asked Will this as well and tried to say like where to find it.
Well, we're on, like, if you go to our website, www.savenour.com, you can find our socials, you can find our art fund, you can find our videos that we've done throughout the campaign. Lots of good fun stuff there.
Fantastic. And so right now, I guess it's the art campaign that you're focusing on.
Yeah, and just kind of building resistance up to the tower, I guess. It's a long process, but we're in it for the long haul, hopefully.
That's yeah, consistency and preparing for the long haul is always the key to successful political activism.
Indeed.
And I just to make sure I'm not pushing Will away on this. Will, what's the best place to find you online, or you want to pitch something?
Yeah, you can find me by searching Push Dust In on Google. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, soon to be TikTok. I'm on YouTube, so lots of other places. So
All the socials.
Yeah.
all the social medias.
But it's just so Push Dust In is the common. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I'll make sure to tag you on that. Well, thank you. We should do like a final, like a kampai, and to say like thanks everybody. Little cheers. So everybody grab a drink of your choice.
Yeah.
Like
Cheers.
all right, cheers.
Cheers.
Gotta make sure I screenshot this. Okay. That should work. Yep, got it. All right. Well, that is yeah, that's our two wonderful speakers, and so that is pretty much the end of their night Kansai number 20. Thank you very much to our two fantastic speakers. Again, for taking their time to speak with us here. And thank you for the participants who are listening in here and on our Facebook Live. We'll have this available on our YouTube page once we can get it out and edited. So you go ahead and share those as well. I hope it'll push a little bit of both of your endeavors for the future. If we'll keep the chat open for another 5, 10, 15 minutes if you guys want to just hang around and talk, but officially this Nerd Night Kansai number 20 is officially closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good, everybody.
Woo.